How's it going, everyone? Today I've got some more Magic for you with a deck that's a little bit different than what I normally do. I'm going to be today playing with a Dimir Mill deck. It's got some discard and some mill features to it that I think are going to be really fun. We've got the foundation of this deck, I guess you could say, is the reprinting of Consuming Aberration. It made me want to make this deck. I used to play with this card back when I first started playing Magic. Not much, because I wasn't into Dimir as much as I was Rakdos, but it made me want to make this sort of a deck since it was reprinted, and I thought it would be fun to play around with since I haven't seen anyone else doing this sort of thing. So we've got, obviously, Consuming Aberration. Its power and toughness are equal to the size of your opponent's graveyard, and whenever you cast a spell of any kind, with Consuming Aberration out on the field, your opponent has to discard cards from the top of their library, mill cards, until they reveal a land card. We've got Deadly Cover-Up, very important in this sort of a deck where you have to really manipulate the board presence. A lot of this deck focuses on your opponent discarding cards and you removing creatures from the battlefield. We've got Breach the Multiverse, obviously a massive hit. If you get the opportunity to use this, it's going to make a significant difference on how many cards are left on your opponent's library, because it mills 10 cards, and then you get to choose two, either creature or planeswalker, one from your opponent's graveyard and one from your own. We've got Jace the Perfected Mind. I'm playing it as a 3 of in this deck. Another very important component of you being able to mill your opponent's deck, it has a -X ability that you can do as soon as you play it. Target player mills 3 times X, where X you get to choose your loyalty that you remove from Jace. So at 5 it would be 15 cards. So just as even more than getting a Breach the Multiverse, so together they work fantastically well together. You could Breach the Multiverse into Jace, your opponent just mills 10 cards, then you can make them mill another 15. And if you do that with Consuming Aberration out on the battlefield, even bigger. We've got a -2 where your opponent mills 3 cards, and then if a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, you draw 3 cards, otherwise you draw a card. Very useful, fantastic draw engine, and then a +1 ability of target creature getting -3/-0, which can essentially shut down your opponent's attackers that would try to attack Jace as it refills loyalty. We've got Realm Breaker, the Invasion Tree. I actually really love this artifact. It is a legendary artifact, so you can only have one out on the battlefield at a time. I have 2 of them in the deck, and it is honestly probably one of my favorite cards in the decks. It is a 3-cost enchantment. You can pay 2 and tap it to target opponent mills 3 cards and put a land card from the graveyard, from their graveyard onto the battlefield tapped under your control, and it gains if this land would leave the battlefield, exile it instead. And then there is a pay 10 and tap to sacrifice Realm Breaker, the Invasion Tree, search your opponent, or search your library for any number of Praetor cards, put them onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. That obviously is irrelevant for this deck because we're not playing any Praetors, but just being able to mill your opponent consistently with your remaining 2 mana at the end of their turn or whatever, and get extra land for yourself in doing so is so fantastic that I really love getting this enchantment out as early as possible and using it when I can. Getting into our 2-drops now, we've got Anoint with Affliction. This is probably one of the best removal cards in Standard right now. This has the ability to hit anything up to a 3 mana value and exiles it from the battlefield. So really good for many of the enduring cards, really good for getting rid of Unrelenting Slasher. You can hit a Preacher of the Schism with this, you can hit a Glissa with this. It is a truly fantastic removal card right now, even if you're not using Infect to get the corrupted effect of getting rid of any mana cost creature. We've got Bandit's Talent, a really fantastic card as far as making your opponent discard cards. When you play it, your opponent has to discard a card, and if they want to discard land, then they have to discard 2 cards. You can pay 1, and that makes it to where at the beginning of your opponent's upkeep, that player has fewer than 2 cards in their hand, they lose 2 life. And if you pay 4 at the beginning of your draw step, if your opponent has fewer than 2 cards, you draw an additional card. So, really good, has potential to draw you extra cards, has the potential to ping your opponent and be hurting their life total, but is also a discard effect that if they want to get rid of land, then they have to get rid of 2 cards instead of getting rid of just 1 good card. We've got Go for the Throat. Pretty staple removal for any black deck. Destroy target non-artifact creature. I do have a sideboard, so it can be relevant where if your opponent's playing all artifact creatures, you may not be able to hit them with Go for the Throat. There are other options. We've got Nowhere to Run, -3/-3 to target creature with flash on an enchantment. This giving you the ability to remove a creature, and it gives you I'm sorry, the Nowhere to Run actually gives you the ability to avoid ward and hexproof on creatures as well, so it makes it to where you can remove anything without your opponent being able to protect it. In that same realm, we have Sheoldred's Edict. This can allow you to get rid of a token creature, a non-token creature, or a planeswalker on your opponent's field. They do have to sacrifice it, so they get to choose if they have multiple creatures. But that being said, this being able to get rid of planeswalkers on its own is really fantastic, and it does get around ward and hexproof effects if you don't have a Nowhere to Run out on the battlefield yet. Now to our 1-drops, we have Hopeless Nightmare. When Hopeless Nightmare enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. Already really good on its own. They lose 2 life and have to discard a card. But then you also have a pay 3 and sacrifice Hopeless Nightmare ability where you can scry and look at, for 2 on the top of your library. And then we've also got 3 Steps Ahead. This card is a 1-drop, but because it is a spree card, it will always be consistently at least a 3-drop in this deck. The first ability is to pay 1 blue and 1 to counter target spell. It has a 3-cost ability, create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, so you could copy a Consuming Aberration with this. And it has a pay 2 ability at the bottom to draw 2 cards, then discard a card. So you can use this most commonly to counter a spell on your opponent's end and draw 2 cards, then discard, or even potentially copy a Consuming Aberration to get 2 of them out on the battlefield at a time, because we only have them as a 2-of in the deck. They are expensive and hard to get out, but we have a lot of cheap mana spells that we can play once it is out on the battlefield to really accelerate the milling. Land is pretty simple. I would probably recommend using more Undercity Sewers than I am if you have them. I don't, which is also why I'm only running the Gloom Lake as a 3-of, because we don't always have the basic land to go with it. But we've got Undercity Sewers, Underground River, a couple of Restless Reef also helps with the milling effect. Gloom Lake Verge, Dark Slick Shores, Swamp, and Island. You could decide if you wanted to remove some of the underground rivers and run more basic lands to play off of the Gloom Lake Verge. I still like having the underground river because it helps with mana fixing quite a bit, so I don't like to leave it out even though you absolutely could. Looking at our sideboard here, we have a few copies of Cut Down if you need even faster removal than what we have in the main board, against, say, for example, a mono red deck or something along those lines. We've got Duress if you need to target what you're making your opponent discard instead of just having Hopeless Nightmare or something along those lines. Blot Out, which is fantastic against other Dimir matchups where you may be facing an opponent with a Kaito. We've got an additional 3 Steps Ahead, as well as Negate in here if you want to run a more heavy counter spell focused game. Ghost Vacuum if you're going up against someone who's actually trying to take advantage of their graveyard that you're trying to put everything into. And Bitter Triumph if you're trying to use removal more direct than Go for the Throat. Say your opponent's actually playing some artifact spells, things or creatures, those sorts of things, then Bitter Triumph will be able to hit those. Well, that is the deck. I may make some misplays. I'm not really used to playing mill decks or control decks. That's why this isn't very heavy with counters to begin with. A lot of opponents will get frustrated and just quit before ever reaching the end of a match with this sort of deck, but it is going to be a lot of fun. I've been playing with it for the past few days, a few different versions of it, in fact, and tweaking it. But so hopefully you guys enjoy this. It's different than what a lot of other people are playing right now, so it turned out to be a lot of fun for me. Alright, so we do get to go first. I think our hand looks pretty usable. We are going to need another blue at some point for 3 steps ahead and Jace, but that'll be fine. Valgavoth's faithful, so our opponent's actually trying to utilize their graveyard, which is not great for us. Go ahead and kill this, because it'll give them value if they get something into their graveyard they want to reanimate. Make them discard something, which may actually be helping them. Okay, they didn't have anything in their hand they wanted to discard. Another good target for Go for the Throat. Kiora is a very good card. Okay. I think I'm actually going to play Jace here because I'm really needing some more land.
Phyrexia showed me the truth. We can improve upon your
Did hit our land drop, so it was worth it. The opponent does have more things in their graveyard now. They may want to hit with a Reanimator spell. Okay. They're using Overlord of the Bailmark. Probably going to get back Kiora if I had to guess. No? Okay. +1 our Jace and say go ahead.
Heal.
Do have a good counter spell if we want to use it on anything. That seems like a great target. I would say in this case, let's get rid of the nowhere to run, I guess. Go ahead and plus our Jace once again. And I think I'm going to use Bandit's talent here. We'll go ahead and +1 as well. Make it at least seem like we have something to do with our 3 mana. Our Deadly Cover-Up is online to exile something from their deck if necessary now. I would like to save the Deadly Cover-Up until the Bailmark animates as a creature, if possible. He's looking through his graveyard, so he may have a Zombify. Yep. So now our opponent has a Overlord, helping us mill them out a little bit. Where are they at? Deck-wise, 35. Okay, so we have some land here. I could go ahead and go for the Deadly Cover-Up now, which I think I will. I can get rid of that Kiora. Okay, that'll remove that from the deck altogether. The opponent does still have another Zombify, which isn't great. Let's get us a card draw.
I know where to find.
Got our Deadly Cover-Up, so now we can get rid of Valgavoth, potentially. I think in this case, I want to wait. 2, 3, 4. Let's go ahead, pay 1 here, or pay for our thing here, and keep up Nowhere to Run. I probably won't use it. Yeah, this is going to be a really good opportunity for us to just wipe out all of our opponent's stuff with Deadly Cover-Up. Opponent has a 3 steps ahead ready. I think getting rid of Valgavoth is going to be important for me here. Because nothing else the opponent has is really problematic at the moment. Keep up Nowhere to Run still. There's a high likelihood he tries to take out my Jace here with the Bitter Triumph. Yep. And that's fine, we just let that happen.
I will iterate on my performance.
Go ahead and go here with Hopeless Nightmare so that I can scry. I don't really need any more land, obviously. And that's what it's going to try and give me. Okay, we got another Deadly Cover-Up, which is not bad. I think in this case we just want to attack with our Reef, because our opponent is holding a 3 steps ahead and is able to use it. Sire of 7 Deaths and Atraxa in the graveyard now. Maybe the opponent has removal as their other card. Okay, looks like no. That 3 steps ahead being used does mean that we have the opportunity to potentially use our Jace now, though. See how many cards our opponent's sitting on? 18. So if we get rid of 15 now, that's actually pretty good. Live or Die bringing back Atraxa. But if I'm not mistaken, this Atraxa, I think, just killed them. Because if they take a bunch of cards off the top of their library, I have a really good opportunity to mill him for 15 with Jace. So we'll see what he takes. I don't think I can mill my opponent, though, because he has that Hydra. So this is interesting. Let's go ahead and get rid of Atraxa. and then attack with our Reeve. I need to prioritize figuring out a way around that Hydra that he has. Because if I can get the Hydra in his hand, then I don't have to worry about milling him. Okay, he's played Sire of Seven Deaths from the graveyard. Let's go ahead and just remove that. This will let us see what he has in his hand now also. Okay, he had a 3 steps ahead. Virtue of Persistence from the opponent. We are going to use the Nowhere to Run to reduce what he's getting. Let's go ahead and play Jace.
I'll take note of all your failures.
How many cards does he have? 9. Okay, so the Hydra was very likely to be already in his hand. I was trying to be careful. I wanted him to have that Hydra in his hand, because if I'm not mistaken, when it goes into the graveyard, you get to shuffle it back into your library. But worst case scenario, he was going to end up picking that into his hand and then not being able to play it. Alright, our opponent gets to go first, but this is a pretty good looking hand, so we'll keep it. Llanowar Elf. Let's go Dark Slick and start off with a Hopeless Nightmare. So Golgari. They had Terra Sunder and a Llanowar Elf that they're attacking with. Go ahead and play out a Swamp, and then I think it's totally fine just to go Bandit's Talon on this turn. Which they may have another Terra Sunder to get rid of it, which I don't mind. That would just be them emptying their hand even faster. Liliana.
This is my home, and I don't.
I will, in this case, get rid of a 3 steps ahead. I was considering holding up my 3 steps ahead on this turn, but I think it made more sense to go ahead and start hurting the opponent for them making us discard. Get rid of the Deadly Cover-Up this time. Play the Gloom Lake. And let's get some card draw going. Just trying to make it so that if our opponent wants to use Liliana, they're going to have to hurt for it.
We all have things we'd rather forget.
Okay, let's get Jace going.
For the sake of Phyrexia, I will become subdued.
I'm
Okay,
tired
our
of your
opponent still
secrets.
wants to play the discard game, surprisingly. Okay. Let's get the Realm Breaker going, because that's going to be really helpful. And then let's go ahead and -6 our opponent.
All your hopes and dreams were for nothing.
The ultimate's going to hurt pretty bad here, because we were already short on land, but let's see what we can do. Well, sadly, I think this is our only chance. We're going to be able to draw more cards from having the Bandit's Talent left, which is why I decided to keep it. And we can get more land more quickly with the Realm Breaker if we can keep it.
We all have things we'd rather.
Okay, we got some more land here. I think I'm going to go ahead and just use the Realm Breaker, because I need more land. What do we want? Let's get a cottage, I suppose. Why not? Got another Jace here. Let's go ahead and use that.
Is wasted. You cannot win. I pull one thread, and your entire mind unravels.
Okay. Our opponent stopped making us a discard, which is kind of funny. It's pretty fine, actually. The opponent has 5 cards left, but they die on this turn to the talents. So, another win. Didn't get to mill them out this time, but we survived a doubling season with a Liliana ult. So I think that was pretty good, honestly. Our opponent never got anything but Llanowar Elves to ping us with. And like I said, keeping the Bandit's Talent and the Realm Breaker was the right decision in my opinion there, because the Bandit's Talent was going to keep pinging our opponent and drawing us more cards, and the Realm Breaker was going to let us keep stealing their land, and sacrificing the Hopeless Nightmare with the land was going to let us scry and make sure that we could at least hopefully get some land on top of our library to play. So I knew we were, or I was thinking that we'd be able to recover more quickly from deciding to keep these rather than keeping the land. And we did. We could have even played our Consuming Aberration at this point as a 42-42. Our opponent did finally decide to stop discarding cards, which it didn't really help them, but because they were down to 5 cards left. So even just my Realm Breaker was going to start making it really hard for them not to just be milled out. I think we would have won that race even if we didn't win the damage race. But anyway, that's an easy game too. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We'll go and see if we can't get a third one. Alright, opponent gets to go first, which is unfortunate, but we've got an okay looking hand here. Healer's Hawk from our opponent means they're going to be trying to gain life, I suppose. I guess the turn passed back to him so quickly they didn't realize. Okay, Johnny's Pride Mate. We'll hit that with our Nowhere to Run before it can get larger. Let's go ahead and play Jace this turn, I think. Oh, I'm sorry. Still think that's a good play, though. I just miscounted. It's going to draw aggression away from us, and we can make their 3/3 not able to do anything.
Surrender is simpler.
Okay, we need to wipe the board at this point, but I don't see a good option here. I think I still want a +1 here. And then I'm going to hold up a kill spell until I can do something, see if that works. If I'm lucky, he may just attack it with the Knight Errant. Really need a land at the moment, though. He's attacking all out at Jace, which is hilarious. So what I've got to do here is at the end step, I got to use the 3 steps ahead to get myself a land.
The knowledge is still valuable.
Okay, and we definitely did. So we'll just get rid of the island. I'll play a Gloom Lake in this case, and wipe the board. Yep, and that's it for our opponent. So, easy game 3 win. He fully committed there. We made sure we got the land for the board wipe. We were going to be able to keep taking care of what he had. So, pretty easy match overall. Could have gone really bad if we didn't play properly there, but it makes all the difference. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and thank you for joining me.